Good afternoon and welcome to our October Lunch and Learn series. We're proud you're here today and hope that you have you learned some valuable information that you can take back to your departments and classes. Before we get started, most of you have already gone through the food line, but in case the drink situation is confusing, sweet tea is in the pitchers with a napkin tied on the side. So if there were any concerns or questions at your tables, maybe that will clear it up for you. Also at your tables, you will see that the evaluation forms are there. Feel free to fill those out throughout the presentation and then give us any feedback on topics that you would like to see covered in the future. We do read over all of the evaluations. We combine those into one spreadsheet after each presentation. So we'll look at that feedback, and if there's something that we can cover that would be beneficial to you, please let us know, and we'll take that into consideration as we plan for our future Lunch and Learns. So today's speaker is Laura Dunn. She serves as the Assistant Director of Student Success here at MSU. She received her BA in Communication in 2008 and a Master of Science in Student Affairs in 2015. Laura is also currently working on her PhD in higher education. In her current role, Laura works to help MSU students overcome obstacles both academically and personally. Today, she'll present on the types of resources that are available across our campus to distant students as well as students on campus as well. So, Laura, take it away.
Thank you so much. You guys hear me now? Is that fix it all? Is it on? Okay, well guys, like she said, my name is Laura Dunn, and when I was asked to present to you guys today about, help for students, resources for students, I was kind of excited because when I look at the students that I help, primarily my job is working with students on this campus, primarily even freshmen, and so that's the bulk of what I do, but I have a lot of other students that end up kind of in my office, end up in my inbox, end up on the phone with me that are older students, that are distant students, that are non-traditional students, and so I do encompass any type of student on our campus, and we try to find resources. But during this process, this has been helpful for me to learn the kind of resources we have because I had to do a little bit of digging. There are several of you in this room that I reached out to saying, hey, when you look about resource for your students, what type things do you point them toward? And so a lot of stuff that I'm going to talk about today is information that a lot of you are probably going to know, but is really helpful. And so when we move forward, the main point of what I'm going to be talking about is resources on our campus. And when I say those resources, I do mean academic resources as well as those additional personal resources at our university. And so that's the majority of what I'll be talking about. And when we think about help for students on our campus, we know that our students are very unique, right? There is not a one-size-fits-all for the kind of problems that you may have inside of higher education, and we understand that. And so every student is going to have a different question, a different problem that's unique to that individual student, and so we need to figure out what are the problems that you're having and how can we fix that. And so again, know that I try to make sure in my role, I tell students a line I give a lot of times is, I don't believe in equality of treating everybody exactly the same. I believe in equity and treating you individually for your problem. And so I'm going to real quickly kind of go over the type of resources we have. And so when I look at the when I look at the academic resources, these are the main things I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to go into some detail with these, but I'm going to talk about things like our writing center, our library, our learning center, how faculty members can help you, and how your advisors can help you. So these are the main focuses of the things I'm going to be talking about when it comes to academics. And please, during this process, we'll have question and answer at the end, but if you say, hey, there's one more thing I want to mention, please feel free to shout out as well. So the first thing is the writing center. The writing center, a lot of people sometimes think, hey, I'm not an English major. I don't need to use the Writing Center. The Writing Center is a wonderful resource for a lot of students, especially when you get farther in your educational process. When you start getting farther up in your curriculum and you have a research-based course you're taking, when you have to write a big paper, if you're a science major, for instance, or some kind of math major, and you're in a theory-based course, and you've never really had to write papers before, writing a big research paper is scary. And the Writing Center is wonderful because though we have a wonderful Writing Center on our campus right across the street from Allen Hall, and we have a few other mobile spots around campus, we have a wonderful online presence as well for the Writing Center. And so students can go online to our Writing Center and they can actually sign up for online meetings that are 45 minutes long with these individuals. And that's a really good resource that you can email your paper in beforehand and sit down and say, okay, so what are things to work on? They aren't so much an edit service, so they're not going to go through and say, hey, you have problems here, here, here. As far as editing, what they're going to do is they're kind of masters on the organization of your paper. And so they're going to talk to you about the flow of your paper. They're going to talk to you about the type of style you're writing in. Maybe you're supposed to write an MLA. Maybe you're supposed to write an APA or an AP. And if you don't know the differences between all those, it gets really confusing and you'll get killed on a paper. And so again, going through and saying, hey, you need to fix this, you need to fix that. The Writing Center is a really good resource for students, especially for our online students. If they need that resource, they need that person to talk to. And so make sure that if you're talking to your students, if they're having difficulty in any kind of course where they have to write things, the Writing Center is a wonderful resource for them. The next thing I want to talk about is the library. The library, I know we have a massive library on our campus that we are incredibly proud of. And one of the things, and I came across this, I don't think I used the library like I should have in my undergraduate degree at all. It wasn't until my master's degree that I realized, you know what? I can really use the library. And that ask a librarian, that chat, who's used the chat feature for the library? It is lovely. If you're searching for an article, for instance, and you know what kind of article you need, but you can't find it, oh, I need this kind of article, I would ask the librarian. And they would open up a chat and I would say, hey, I'm looking for this type of article. I'm looking for this type of resource. I'm looking for this type of data. Do you know where I can find that? And lickety-split, they do that professionally. I would spend hours looking for something and they would find it in literally 45 seconds. And so if students feel like they're getting blocked up on things, I know it can be overwhelming sometimes if you're trying to write a huge research paper, you're trying to get resources for something, but those librarians online are a really great resource for students to utilize in general and any kind of questions. And so make sure that students realize that they can use the library as well. And you can see that we have so many different resources, so many different databases to pull from. We have interlibrary loan as well, and so we'll have students that will say, hey, I need that PDF version. Well, even if we don't have that, you can do the interlibrary loan process and you'll have it in a day or two for basically no charge to students most of the time. So the library is also a really, really good resource. The next thing is the Learning Center. So on our campus, the Learning Center is located in Allen Hall, and most of our students think about it because they have a lot of really good tutoring. They have a lot of LSK courses. They have supplemental instruction, which is a Wondering Tutor program for about 23 undergraduate courses on campus. But they also have the ability to help our distance students as well. I know in the past, Clay Armstrong, I'd work with the distance program to try to get some tutoring in place. The problem they had when they put that person in place is that no students really reached out to that person. So they were paying someone to sit in an office, but no students reached out. And so what they've decided now to do, that if you come across a student that realizes I need help in a specific class, as long as they contact the Learning Center and say, hey, I need help in my macroeconomics course, we will set somebody up and create an online tutoring option for that individual student. We're going to do that on a case-by-case purpose because that actually we think will work really well. And so if you do have students that need individual help in an individual course, know that the Learning Center is there for you to utilize, is there for those students. And they're very open to suggestion. That's one thing that I've been very happy with, that if I go to the Learning Center and I would say, hey, I've noticed I've had some students complain that they're not getting really good help with this problem or this problem, that the tutor wasn't really helpful here, or they had a math tutor that hadn't taken that course in 3 years and didn't really know a lot of information. They will go ahead and hire somebody new. They are very good about updating people if you let them know their problems as well. So again, I think the Learning Center is a really good resource to utilize for students. Faculty members. This is sometimes something that we take for granted, that students don't realize they can utilize. But I gave an example to someone in the room a few minutes ago. I'm in a PhD program right now, and I'm taking one of the distance courses. And in that distance course, my faculty member has been very, very, very helpful. And at the end of every PowerPoint presentation that she does and the videos she posts, she says, hey, here are a few sample problems. If you have any questions, please let me know. Well, I am in the business of resources, so I'm going to take her up on that. And so I will work a problem. I'll take a picture of it with my phone. I'll email it to her, and in 20 minutes, she'll have an answer back to me and say, hey, Laura, good job. I printed this out, and I wrote some comments on it. Here you go. I probably get better communication with that faculty member that I have online that lives hours away than I do my faculty member that I'm taking that's on campus. And so students need to realize that their faculty members, when they say, reach out to me, I have office hours online, download this app, whatever method that teacher is using, take them up on that. Those teachers are a wealth of knowledge. They've been put in that position in order to teach students. And so again, encourage your students to make sure they are asking questions of their teachers. Whether you're a student that is an on-campus student or an online student, there's this idea sometimes that teachers are scary. I got some teachers in this room. I got lots of teachers as friends. And you want to know the secret about teachers? They're just real people. And it's true. Like, if you have a problem, if you make a mistake, don't just hide in a hole and say, oh, I messed up. I had a student in my office today and said, I got a 0 on my test. Why did you get a 0 on your test? Well, it was a Scantron, and I didn't bubble in my name. I wrote my name, but I didn't bubble it in, and so I got a 0. And I said, did you talk to your teacher? No. Oh my God, talk to your teacher. Talk to your teacher. That is the most basic thing ever. They are real people. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them have souls that they are willing to help their students. And so again, if you have a student who is freaking out in a class, ask them that super basic question. Have you talked to your teacher? What kind of help have they offered you? Have you come to them with a question? Have you come to them with the what you are struggling with? And so a lot of times I'll talk to students about, okay, you're struggling in chemistry, or you're struggling in biology, whatever it is that you are struggling with, figure out what is the concept you're missing. Is it those study skills that you're missing? Is it the content itself that you don't understand? Is it the information that you're not sure where those test questions are coming from? Figure out what it is that's the problem, and then go after that problem. Because if you go and sit down with the teacher and say, I need help. Well, what do you need help with? You need to have a pretty good question. And so again, but realize that these teachers are really helpful individuals and can be very, very helpful. The next also real person that students sometimes forget about is their advisor. I've got a lot of advisors in this room as well. And a lot of times the kind of questions that students have, they're all across the board. That's the wonderful thing about an advisor. An advisor, yeah, they're a really good resource for you when it comes to what kind of classes are you taking? What kind of content are we going to be covering? Hey, what's the difference between this teacher and this teacher when it comes to this content? What's the best way to take this course? But also, if you have other questions, if you're saying, hey, I want to know about stuff outside of the classroom. So if I'm doing this degree, are there things I need to be thinking out that happen outside of the classroom? Is there an internship you would suggest for me? Are there other programs in my community that I could get involved with that'll make my resume better for this program as well? And so I think advisors are a really good person to give advice. And so if you're one of the advisors in the room, please take that role seriously, and that students look to you guys as being the end-all, be-all and answers. They think you're magical. At least they should. But again, making sure students are utilizing those advisors that they have on campus, and that you guys offer a lot of really good resources for them in general. So the next thing I'm going to do is talk to you guys about some other resources we have on campus that a lot of our students also don't realize that they are able to utilize. So these next things I'm going to talk about are things like our Career Center, Student Account Services, our Center for America's Veterans, and Student Support Services. And so again, these are kind of bigger umbrella areas of campus, but I think it's really good for students to utilize these. The first thing is that Career Center. Oh, my images didn't load. I hate that. Oh, well, I'm sorry. So our Career Center on campus, I had a really nice picture. I guess there's no use in it now. But I had a really nice picture of their website and of a few different things they do. But when it comes to the Career Center on their website, they have very clearly defined areas for how they help students. One of the two things that I talk to on-campus students a whole lot about is I say, hey, have them tear apart your resume. If you've never had someone take your resume and tear it into pieces and help you rebuild it, that is an invaluable experience. They will happily do this for you, and they will tear it apart over and over and over again. And it'll hurt a little bit, but it'll make you a better person in the long run. Sometimes that's tough to hear when someone says, listen, the way you have this outlined, listen, your GPA, you really shouldn't put that on there. That's not the best thing about you. Highlight these other areas. Or if you realize, my GPA isn't super great, but man, look at the other stuff I'm doing. I had this amazing internship that I do. I have a job that I currently have that gives me really, really great opportunities to utilize this degree to its best ability. Highlight those positive things, and they're very good in helping you with that. And also saying, where do you want to be? So when we look at this resume, who are we going to be giving this to? Are we going to be sending this to a very specific job? General jobs? Are we going to be going to an internship or a co-op or whatever it may be? And so they're really good. They will redo students' resumes for them over and over and help them, because you're going to have different opportunities along the line. So the kind of resume you want for an internship at one point in your career versus the kind of resume you want after you've graduated with your master's to go into a professional career may look a little different. And so they're going to make sure that they look at that. Also, they do a whole lot of mock interviews. I did mock interviews when I was a student on campus a while ago, and that was a really great experience as well, because they'll say, okay, they told me, Laura, find a job on that you want to apply for, whether it's a job you're really going to apply for or just something that you'd one day want to apply for. And give us the school and everything, give us the job description. So I was actually, make-believe, I was applying for a job at a different university. And so I sent that. And they said, okay, in a week we have your meeting. Come and sit down in our office, dress like you would for a real interview. We're going to do research on this school, and so know that we're going to ask you questions about it, and we expect you to have answers. And they did a 45-minute long interview with me. And after the interview, they said, Laura, you did a really, really good job with this and this and this. Super great knowledge about this area and great answers here. But you know what? You talk too fast. Slow down. You're really excitable. That might scare people, so chill out a little bit sometimes. These are things I have now taken to heart years later, and I understand that, but they'll be good with that. And so we offer that for online students. We also offer that for distance students as well. And so distance students need to know that we have an option in our Career Center for distance students to utilize that interviewing service. And again, that is another invaluable service that students need to realize they use, because again, it hurts a little bit for someone to tell you, there's some stuff you need to work on. But again, I've been able to take those things they've told me and really put those to heart. And I've worked on those things over the years in general, and it's been very, very beneficial for me as well. So again, the Career Center, they also have a wonderful online resource for job postings that whether you're a student on campus or after you've graduated, has anybody ever been on that list and gotten those emails? I still get those emails. They're good jobs. I think about leaving here all the time because of the jobs that post up. Not really though. But there are some wonderful jobs that post up on those boards based on what you're interested in. So based on the kind of degrees you get, that database will search for the kind of jobs that are posted right now in the marketplace, and they'll email you and say, hey Laura, you have a degree in public relations. This job just posted, you're interested in public relations as well as higher education, and a PR job just posted at this university. You might be a good fit for that. And so, again, it's a great way to also look at jobs, give you contact information. And for students that are distance, even if you can't be here every single day, if students want to come on campus and still take part in our career fairs as well, we have students that are distant students that don't live that far away from here. And if they had to take off a day and come for one of our career fairs on campus, that's a wonderful opportunity to meet employers. Whether you're looking at a full-time job, a graduate program, a professional program, or just an internship or a co-op. And so making sure that our distant students know they're not just at a distance. If they are able to come to campus as well for things, they are more than welcome to come to any kind of resource we have, Career Center or anything else. And so the Career Center does a really, really good job. They also have a great magazine that they put out every single year that I think is really, really helpful. It's about 40 pages, and it goes through tips for resumes, tips for cover letters, tips for a lot of things in the job market in general, and I always have a stack of those in my office. They have an online version of it as well. And so if you have students, if you're an advisor and you have students that are getting to a certain point in their career where they need to be looking at those next steps, that's a really good piece of publication to be able to email out to students and saying, hey, the Career Center made this really great publication that I look at it on a regular basis with my students in my office. And so, again, the Career Center is really, really good. Next thing is Student Account Services. I don't think any of my images came in, so I'm sorry for this, but I can talk through it, and I'm glad I have my own. But Student Account Services. So one of the good things about Student Account Services, you don't really have to be on campus to do it anymore. You don't have to trek all the way across campus to Garner Hall. That's not all the way from here, but for most people, it's all the way across, to take care of your account. And that's great. All of our account services things are almost fully 100% online. If you call them as well, as long as you can get someone on the phone, they're actually pretty helpful in walking you through that process. I know we've had some changes as of late when it comes to our account balances on campus and when things are due, and the prepay program that we have. But they've been working pretty well with students, and that if students have been confused by that, they've been working really, really well with students. And so again, know that if students have questions about money, there are some really, really good online resources where they walk you through those processes step by step by step, and you can always call online, call someone, and they can help you out with that process as well. But I know a lot of our students, for instance, have full-time jobs and they're doing their coursework in the evening. Well, no one's going to be over here in the evening to answer the phone. And so again, they've made a lot of those resources online and step-by-step processes for students, and they can pay pretty much any hour of the day when it comes to those account balances. The next thing is our Center for America's Veterans. Use your imagination of what my picture looks like. But Center for America's Veterans is a wonderful resource on campus. We are an incredibly military-friendly campus with I don't know the exact numbers of how many students we have, but we have a lot of military families, whether they are active members, whether they're retired, whether they're dependents, using our resources. And so whether you look at those financial resources that they offer to students, whether it comes to reduced tuitions or GI Bills or whatever those financial resources we can be. I have students that I've worked with that come here and they're like, oh, it's just, school's so expensive. And then we start talking, well, where are you from? Well, I'm from all over the place because my dad, blah, 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 was in the military. Well, then why are you paying out-of-state tuition fully right now? You know, we have programs where we can give you a big old discount. Wait, what? And so again, you won't find many offices on campus that are more willing to talk to people about help when it comes to the Center of America's Veterans. They are really good at saying, hey, we offer these kind of services for you financially, but also what kind of services do you need additionally from that? And so if we have service members that are in the service, that are students on our campus, and they get deployed, for instance, what kind of rights do they have? What kind of resources do they need? Is that going to be a super short, I'm in the National Guard and I'm being sent down to Florida for the hurricane coming up, only for 2 weeks? So what can we do in your courses? How can we help you talk to your teachers? How can we reach out to your teachers for you? Or it's, hey, I'm being deployed for the next 8 months. Okay, what does this mean for our education? How are we going to work around this? And so that office does a phenomenal job with a group of students that deserve a lot of help and that deserve a lot of our respect on our campus. And so, again, know that if you have any students at all that fall into the category of a service member or a dependent, please make sure they are utilizing this office. I meet students on a regular basis that have connections to the military that have never stepped foot in this office, that have never called any of the people in their office. And they have some really good resources to tell you about. And so again, the more resources we can get to our students, the better. And so if someone falls in this category, I hugely, hugely suggest you make sure they know about it. Student support services. So student support services / disability support services is located in our campus in Montgomery Hall. When I called over to student support services and I said, hey, what can you guys offer for distant students? I know a lot of the stuff that you do online, or do in person, and so we offer a whole lot of accommodations for students, if no matter what kind of disability you may have. And at first, I literally got told, well, not a whole lot. And I said, whoa, that can't be right. And he says, well, when I say that, we do plenty on our campus, but because some students are online, they're getting a lot of those resources already. So we make sure, for instance, we try to get as many of our websites on our campus to make sure they're ADA compliant when it comes to the buttons that they have, when it comes to how their layout is. And so we've done a really good job on our campus of trying to overhaul some websites. That's been a lot of work through student support services as well as public affairs, trying to make sure we have people, up to those regulations that we have. And so we try to make sure that, for instance, if we have videos on Blackboard or what's going to be Canvas, we make sure we have subtitles on those videos. And so again, we try to make sure that we make those as accessible as possible. Additionally, we have, for instance, if students need, one of the only things student support services can really do is offer extended time for students on tests. So depending on how a class is set up, if students only have, for instance, an hour to complete a test, they may be able to extend that out in student support services. And so if you have any students that have any kind of accommodations, what I would tell you is make sure that if they need some kind of accommodation, contact student support services and they can see what they can do. Because again, we try to take things by a case-by-case basis with students when they need help. And so kind of in wrapping up with you guys, when I think about working with students, here at our university, we don't just work with our on-campus students. We try to make sure that we're working with all of our students, whether those are students that are here on campus, doesn't matter what year you are, whether those are our distant students, whether those are students on other campuses that we have as well, that all of our students are important to us. We call ourselves the People's University, and I am a firm believer in that we try to do what we can to help our students, but unless students know that these resources are available and they utilize those resources, we can't do a whole lot. And so here's my information again. I'm happy to meet with you. I put my cell phone number on there as well because I'm around campus all the time, and so I'd rather you just text me or call me on my cell phone. You'll get a much better response than you will with my office phone. So what kind of questions do you guys have for me today? Right here. Yes, ma'am. Yep, it's you.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Yeah. You mentioned that distant students could come to a career fair here if they're close and nearby or they
Yep.
want to travel. Would the same be said for the Meridian campus or any other Mississippi
If
State?
you're a student enrolled at any of if you are a student, I don't care if you're taking one class or 6 classes, you can take advantage of any resource we have on campus. And so students need to realize that they can take advantage of anything. If you're paying, included in tuition of all these resources that we talk about. And so absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think Josie had one in the back, orange. Josie's gonna add something.
Just as an add-on, we have a campus on the Gulf Coast, and they actually send a bus up to the career fair almost every time.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. And so, again, we try to make sure that we're doing things to help students. But if you're not at one of the campuses where a bus is there, letting students know, hey, we have these great opportunities. I know, I've talked to some friends who are distant students, and they're just like, yeah, I just feel kind of disconnected sometimes because I don't get to take advantage of these resources. Well, you can't, though, if you'd like. So know that you can take advantage of these resources, for sure. What other kind of questions? Well, for you guys that actually work with distant students kind of on a daily basis, are there other things that you can think of that you have pushed your distant students toward to utilize that I didn't cover on here? So I covered good stuff.
Maybe each other.
Maybe each other. Yeah, that's one thing I didn't cover. It was just commented here. Maybe each other, and that's one thing that I think is really helpful. The one distance course I'm taking this semester, for instance, it's a statistics course. I haven't taken a statistics course since my freshman year of college, which was a while ago, and so we're confused in the class sometimes. Even though she's a very good teacher, but it's been really useful to get on a discussion board and say, hey guys, does anybody want to talk about this assignment that we have coming up and figure out, we've been told we can talk to each other. It's okay. We were told we could. And it's been really nice to be able to talk with other people, and that's going to build more community in that class. When I talk to students that are on-campus students, I'll say, if you're in a class, gosh, lean forward at one point in the class when the teacher's not around and say, hey, is anybody else lost? Who wants to be in a group with me? Get together and study sometimes. It is so nice and reassuring to have other people in your class with you if you're trying to look over material and say, hey, is this correct what I'm doing? Am I understanding this material correctly, or am I completely just off limits right now? And so each other, making sure our students realize that they're not an island. And I think that's one misconception that sometimes our students have, that they're completely on an island. They're taking classes by themselves in their office, in their house, at 11 o'clock at night when they get home from work. And they're not. We have resources to help those students, and we're willing to help them. And so when I was talking with the Learning Center about this, for instance, they clearly said, listen, if a student has to, meet with someone at 9 o'clock at night, we'll get a tutor to be up at the Learning Center at 9 o'clock at night and help them. College students are awake at 9 o'clock at night. And so they all need money as well. And so again, we have resources for students, and if you're working with these distant students, please let them know that we are happy to help them. But we don't ever know if a student is struggling unless they tell us. Yes, sir.
Yeah, one resource or multiple resources that distant students can tap into. They're probably working, and there's somebody at their workplace. You can remind them that could be a resource, but in some cases, one of those people in the workplace could be on their graduate committee. And you sign them up here, what do they call them, participating faculty or something now? It used to be adjunct faculty, I don't know what it is, but I have a guy who works for the Texas Forest Service, and he has a retired Texas Forest Service employee who we have on the committee, and they have a similar area. But if you go beyond that, if the network is broad enough, like ours is in forestry, there may be companies or organizations or consulting firms or associations that your student may not know are there or may not know who to contact. And then again, there's another resource that they could tap into. Doesn't necessarily have to be on their committee.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it's a really good thing to think about. For instance, in the Career Center, one thing they talk about a whole lot are those networking skills in general. Work with other people, finding other people that are in your field that are experts. That's also a very invaluable experience when you're a student, especially if you're getting an advanced degree in something and you do have to have a committee. Thinking, who am I going to put on this committee that will build me up as a person, that will support me, but also be critical with me? You want to have a good balance of those people. That whole challenge and support idea is a valid one. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Laura, can you give us any feedback on how the virtual career fairs have been?
To be honest with you, I don't know a whole lot about the virtual career fairs. Does anybody here have experience with the virtual career fairs?
I know that they exist, but have we?
Does anybody have a comment on that? We
Yes.
can find that information from the Career Center. I will say one thing, when I called around campus to a few different departments, almost everybody I talked to was saying, well, this is what we do currently, but if you have other ideas for us, let us know. And so I think that is a good homage to what our university is like, that if we see that there are areas that we can grow, so if you're a person that's saying, man, I really wish that we had this kind of resource for students, or this kind of resource, or this kind of help to offer students, talk to us and see what we can do. Talk to a department that has those abilities, and we can see if we can do that. So if we don't do a virtual career fair, I think we can. We do have, again, those job posting boards that are really, really helpful, but I don't know if we have an online career fair. I don't know. Someone just asked about counseling, if students can utilize counseling. I'll be 100% honest in that I'm not 100% sure how students can utilize counseling. We do have our counseling lines that you can call and talk to counselors and so make appointments, and so I assume that you can still call and contact those counselors. As long as you're a full-time student on campus, you can utilize counseling services. And that's one thing that I do know, that they don't have free counseling services to part-time students. But there it is a reduced rate. It's much cheaper than using professional counselors in the community. But students can definitely benefit from that. We know that when you come to college, life doesn't stop. Everybody's going to have problems. You're going to have problems personally in your life, whether it's with deaths in your family, whether it's with addictions, whether it's with anything. Everybody has their own things that they are struggling with, and so definitely letting students know that they have resources when it comes to counseling.
Could you comment on resources for more active learning? I see a couple of examples I heard, but because of the nature and distance ed, where interactions are not as much as what we would have in the classroom, and this active learning seems to be effective. Can you comment on what type of resources could be, or you have for the students that are in this type of class?
Yeah, and so when it comes to active learning, I'd actually like someone, maybe an academic department, to give me an example of what you guys do, because I'm not teaching those classes myself, I'm not the best person to ask on that. And so if you're in an academic department, has anybody utilized some really good active learning participation? Anybody? No? Nobody does any? I'm not completely sure when it comes to active learning how. I think it would depend on the course as well. I'll know just in my individual experiences, for instance, the classes that I've gotten the most out of are the ones where there is a whole lot of interaction, for instance. And so when I feel like those faculty members, when they utilize different resources, whether that is we're going to have not just assignments you turn in online, but also different discussion boards, different projects you work on as well in groups. And I feel like the more interaction you can get inside of a classroom, you're going to have a much more active class in general. And I feel like you're going to learn better in those situations. And so.
Well, the reason I asked is because students don't like to work together.
No.
And I was wondering how maybe in virtual environment might be better, or better ways.
Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I will comment on that.
Yeah.
So one thing is the Center for Distance Ed can help with some of that.
the things you're doing in your courses. We can sit down with you and do some brainstorming and how to do, what is it that you want to do? One of the things I would always ask is, well, how would you do it if you were doing it face to face? What is your ideal that you want to accomplish? And then we can look at the outcome you want and then kind of backtrack from there and look at different tools that are available online. I mean, I was talking to somebody, and just having a simple discussion board that students can talk to each other. There's classes that don't even have that, and they really feel isolated. But there's a lot of things that we can do, and we've got some really great staff that can kind of help you within your course to add some of that interaction and help connect the students to each other and to you and to the content. So
I will say as well, you mentioned that students really like working together. I think we've all heard a student be like, I hate group work, it's miserable. Well, we all have jobs, right? Do we have to work with other people? You have projects, you have to work with other people. Welcome to life, students. That's a part of it. And so when I have students that say, I hate group work, I remind them this is what it's going to be like. And so if you don't get along with that person, they're going to be coworkers you don't get along with. You're going to have bosses you don't get along with. But you have to work through that. That's a part of life in general. But I think the stuff that she said about having interactive classes in general, using all the different capabilities, and I think when we switch over to Canvas next semester as well, they have a lot more really cool capabilities to make those classes a lot more active.
Any other questions for Laura? All right, if you'll join me in giving Laura a round of applause.
Thanks
We
so much,
appreciate her
guys.
being
I
with us today.
appreciate it.